Today we're going to compute an ANOVA, which is an analysis of variance. In this case, we're going to do it to compare the difference of three types of solar cells. For an ANOVA, we use the following information for our null hypothesis, which states that all groups means are equal, whereas our alternative hypothesis is that at least one group is different. So in essence, we are essentially using an ANOVA to determine whether or not we can reject the null that the groups means are equal. So what is an ANOVA? It's a statistical tool that allows us to compare the mean of 3 or more populations. T-tests only allow us to do this for 2 populations, whereas ANOVA allows us to do it with 3 or more. The ANOVA computation allows us to see if there are major mean differences between the different populations, in our case, the different solar cells. It does this by using a sample variance. From the sample variance, an F statistic is calculated, which tells us if the means are equal or not. Essentially, it gives us a p-value that we can use to reject or not reject the null. So why ANOVA versus, let's say, a bunch of t-tests between each of the different populations? Because it decreases the likelihood for a type 1 error if we were to just do a bunch of t-tests between each of these different populations. For today, we won't calculate the F statistic because what I'm really wanting to do is just get practice doing ANOVA and reading the output. So let's get started. In order to do an ANOVA, we have to add a package into our Google Sheets. So our package here, we can add on through extensions. So you go to Add-ons, Get Add-ons. The package that we're going to be adding on is called XL-Miner. So XL-Miner Analysis Tool Pack. Click on XL-Miner and hit Install. Go to Continue. I'm going to use my ASU account. Hit Continue. Hit Allow. And it's installing and it's ready to go. Now, for XL-Miner, when we go to extensions, we'll see that it's listed here under our extensions. Now let's get back to the data. So you see here we have the 3 populations. In our case, the mono, the poly, and the thin film. Remember, we want to see if there is a difference in these populations. So we're going to do that using XL-Miner. So if you go into extensions, we're going to hit XL-Miner Analysis Toolpack and go to Start. Now it's going to show up over here in your window, and you're going to do ANOVA single factor. Single factor means that there's one thing that we're trying to compare against, and in our case, we're comparing the different material of these different populations. Our input range is B1 through D7. Oh, that didn't go in right. B1 through D7. We're going to group it by columns. The labels are in the first row, and we're going to be using an alpha of 0.05. Now we need to select where we want the output of our test to go. So I'm going to just select F1. So we're going to hit OK, and it's going to do the analysis for us. In the output of the analysis, you're going to see a couple of things. First, we're going to see this SS, which is the sum of squares, which is essentially just associated with our variances. DF refers to our degrees of freedom. And then here we have our F statistics that I told you would be calculated. And here we have our p-value. And you'll see with the p-value, it's really, really small. In fact, it's less than the 0.05 alpha that we had. So we can feel pretty confident here in rejecting the null, which essentially means that the difference between these two things are not equal. And that's it. So you should be able to set up your experiment to look at 3 different populations or more and run your ANOVA single factor using the Excel Mino tool pack.